So now that we have all these and we need the arc, what I want to do is we're gonna name this SM. Let's name this first SM support beam, and then I'll copy this name, support blank, and I'll select everything and I'll delete the history. So now what I want to do, because now that we have a couple of pieces, we can start building and making it look more as the reference. So let's start building it up and seeing what we're gonna build next. But remember that this is temporary because everything has to come back to 000 when we're going to export it and texture it and then bring it into the engine, because in the engine everything needs to be in 000 so that you have modular pieces that you can play around with. So the first thing I want to do is bring the roof down. So I'll press D, and then on this position now it's at 0 at the bottom. So now I'll bring it back down to 0. I know that all my meshes are at 0, so if I come and just snap it down, it's at 0. The log, same thing. Click on it, position down, bring it back down. And this one I want it actually sitting in the middle. That is good. Now I'll grab the other one, come into this view, turn off the grid, the bottom, and bring it down. Now we have all the pieces. Now that we have all the pieces basically sitting on top of each other on the bottom, we want a freeze transformation because we don't want this transforms in our mesh. We want everything zeroed out so that when we start moving stuff, we can build the building, but then when we are done, we can just grab everything, select the translates and the rotates, then press 0, and then everything is going to go back to normal. Now we're going to modify freeze transformation. Now if you come and select all these and press 0, you see that they're not moving anywhere. But if I go and move it, see the transform. If I press 0, it's going back to the origin. That's what we want. So now let's start building. So let's start hiding everything and getting the walls out. So let's rotate them. And I'm snapping with J, and then snapping with V. We got one, then Control D, snap it to the other side and bring it in a little bit. Then I'll grab this one, Control D, and snap it to the back. This one is a little bit in. I'll bring it out, and it's because of the position of the pivot. Now we got all the walls. Now we need the logs. So I'll bring out the logs. The logs, I just have to bring them up. Then these I have to rotate. I'll snap it back, snap it up, and then put them in place. And these go a little bit lower or higher. Control D, same thing, bring it to this side. And then press D, Control D, bring it to this side. Now we have this, but we see we have a gap here. So if you take a look at this, the way they got around it is they actually added a piece of log or a piece of another plank like support beam to do the same thing to hide the gap. Now we come with the arc, bring it up, and we have another floor. So we'll select all of these down here, press Control D and bring them up. And this one, snap it to the top. Now we got to bring the roof, snap it to the top, move it forward. And something like that. Now we bring the support beams, bring it in, place it under and a little bit out. Okay, and then the plank. Bring the plank up and forward. Now that everything is aligned, we can see what we're missing. These, and these go a little bit higher. Now we can do modifications to whatever we need. So on this instance, I see that the logs need to be a little bit thicker. So I could do that. And I don't have to do it on this side because I can just delete that one, bring it over. Now we need the arc for the inside. So let's build that. Easiest way to build that arc is if you grab the inner arc, press D to duplicate, bring it forward. And this arc actually, if we press this button to isolate back again, we'll grab all these edges and do a bridge so that we don't have that hole in the middle. And sometimes it doesn't want to merge everything, so you just have to do it manually with the multi-cut. And just in case, merge the vertices. And there you go. But in this instance, we don't need this. So we're gonna grab all the faces except the ones in the front, so that we can delete it and we are left with a plane. So now we'll grab all these faces and we're gonna use extrude. So shift right click, extrude, or edit mesh, extrude, or Control E. And we want to do an offset, which will bring the mesh in. I'm going to select all the faces and delete them. Even these. And then these two verts, we want to bring them down. And we have an arc. And then we'll grab all these faces and extrude them back or forward. Sometimes if you extrude back, it'll give you black geometry. That means it's flipped. So then you will have to do the reverse normal and it'll fix it. So I can show you how to do that. So what you want to do is come into faces, select everything, shift right click, face normals, reverse normals, and you'll see it flips it. By the way, every time I'm saying shift right click is leaving shift pressed and right clicking, and you get the marking menu. Now that I have that, I'll bring it back, and then what we want to do is just bring it up. And again, I'm just selecting X and Y, so that because I don't want it to move on the Z axis. And now, since I don't want to do this side, I'll just delete it, grab it, press D, shift right click, E, Control D, minus X, select both, shift right click, combine, merge vertice, shift right click, and then vertices, merge vertices. Now we have an arc. We delete all this, and this is gonna be front arc support, and we'll move it back. Now we have the arc in the inside, and we need the supports for the side. So if you take a look, we need these supports and we need these supports. So now all we want to do, we can just grab it from here. If we don't want to create, we don't want to create anything from scratch, Control D, duplicate, and modify. So we have the one from here. I'll snap it to the middle, and then I'll reduce the size. And if I want the pivot to be right in the center, modify, center pivot, and that's the center. And then press V, snap it, and then scale. Move it down, move it in, and then decide what's the actual length of it. And this is fine because it's intersecting, so when in the engine it's gonna look like it's part of it. So this is perfect. We need another one in the back, but I'm support. This is the middle support, and then I'll just name it 01 because we're gonna have two. So Maya automatically, when you duplicate, is going to add a second number to it. So now we have that one. We need, actually I'll rename these. The middle support small, middle support small, because these are gonna be large. And I'll rename this to 1. Once you are used to working in Maya and get used to the navigation, you'll move really fast. So all this that I'm doing, I could do this whole cabin in less than a day with UVs and texturing. and almost every other model. The only difference is that on this instance, I'm not going to be using another program that I'm used to be working with, which is ZBrush, which is used for sculpting. So all the high detail, I do it in that program, and then I bake what is called normal maps and bake it on top of the low poly ones. Now that we have this, delete history. So I select everything, Alt Shift D, and delete all the history on everything. But I don't freeze transformation because I want everything to come back to 0. Now that we have all the supports, we need the support beams from the side, and it's going to be the same thing. I'll grab another piece of geometry from here and then modify it and rename it. This is going to be wall support. And if you want to move stuff in the outliner, all you do is come to the one that you want to move, middle mouse, click and drag, and you can move things around. I moved the one that I didn't need to. I had to duplicate it. Bring it out. Now this one I can modify. So this one I want it as a log, so I want it somewhat square. And right now we're doing everything pretty straight and pretty perfect. Then afterwards you can give it a little bit of imperfections. Is that when you are in a game, you see that when they're trying to do realistic games, nothing in the world is actually perfect. The edges are not perfect, but there's something called bevel that we're gonna do to the models later. That way, I'll give you an example. If you see this log, and I grab all the edges from all these edges, and then there's a tool, edit mesh bevel. It'll give this nice edge. And if you turn off all these wireframe, you can see it. You can see more definition with a bevel than you can see it here. So in reality, everything has a little bevel. Even the straightest of edges has a little bevel on it. But currently we're just building stuff, and then we add those details later. So I know this one, this support, just needs to come up. I'll turn back wireframe and intersect all these. There you go. And we need another one for this side. And the same thing, we need 2 for the back. And I can see they're intersecting on the top. We can leave them like that because we can just grab these and bring them a little bit down so that intersects with the bottom part instead. And we have those. Now we need the ones from the bottom. But the ones from the bottom have a little shape to them. So you can see we have this. Now we're gonna create that. So we'll just do one and then duplicate the rest. So we'll come down, duplicate this one, and bring it down. We'll align it with the floor. So D, line the pivot, bring it up, and then bring this one down. And that's good because there's another support beam that goes all around the geo right here is this trim, this piece of plank, which is fine. So this is more than enough. So now let's create the arc. Let's create an arc. Do the same thing. I'll come, shift right click, now insert an edge loop. You can see that it's taking form now. And then we want it to come like this, down, and like this. So we're gonna put an edge loop right here, and then put another one we're actually not gonna put another one there, but we'll come and grab this face and extrude it out and then scale it down. And then all we want to do is add more edge loops so that we can give form to it. So multi-cut, click, 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 and then all we want to do is grab the vertices and scale them down. Now we have that form, we have the other form. Same thing on the bottom. Multi-cut. Extrude out. And if you want it to be the same length, you press V and snap it. And then on this one, I'm just gonna use insert edge loop 3. Come to this view, and then I'll do this manually because I don't want the bottom to move. So bring this one down. This one is a little bit thinner. And if you take a look, it looks like mine's is a little bit high. What you want to do is come back into the side view and start reducing. This one looks like it's a little bit up, like so. It looks nice now. And then it's not as thick as the support beams, so I'll reduce it a tiny bit. And delete the history. So this looks good. And now D for the other side. And then we want to make the door.